right. So ethical considerations. Maybe not every, but I'll say maybe every empirical study or research should have a section that attends to the ethics, right? And I think for all of us in this program where we have consistently attended to threads of ethics throughout the program, this should come as no surprise that there is space in our dissertation and your dissertation and practice for ethical considerations. We're incorporating it here rather than like maybe previously in the dissertation because we want it to be really close to the actual implementation, the actual like PDSA cycle and implementation change that you made. So, purpose. This section demonstrates your commitment to ethical practice through your PDSA implementation and provides readers with confidence that you conducted your change initiative with integrity, respect for participants, and attention to potential risks. It also establishes the ethical foundation that guided all aspects of your implementation work. Now, although you might be writing this after you've already written up all your phases and you've done everything, readers are reading this prior to reading your PDSA implementation, right? So what we're doing on the front end, we're trying to tell our readers like, hey, before we even dive in and you get all of these details, here are all of the ways that I was ethical or I was committed to ethics throughout, so that when they actually read the implementation, there's hopefully a sense of trust and hopefully this understanding of like all of these things that you're describing, you also attended to them ethically. Other dissertations might also include at the very end. So like after you read the implementation, then they attend to ethical considerations. There is no right or wrong. We are deciding here we want it on the front end. Like we want to be really upfront that this is something that we prioritize and something that we value. It's probably going to be about 4 to 5 paragraphs. So and there's a chance it could be like a few more, but not much. The goal is just to hit these really clearly, strongly, and succinctly. You're not going to belabor the point here. You could probably speak for hours about how ethical you were, but here we just want to hit the main key ideas. So content overview, you're going to address the key ethical dilemmas of your implementation, including some different topics like informed consent processes, power dynamics and collaborative approaches, confidentiality and data protection, and beneficence considerations. Review the work that you did in 814, Applied Ethics. And if you remember back in that, there's probably some reminders of you're going to need to use some of this material. One reading in particular, your Davison and colleagues reading about ethics of action research, because a lot of the things that you did were very action research oriented, improvement science and action research, although they're slightly different, they're complementary of one another, where you want to take particularly look at the ethics of consent and the ethics of collaboration. So those two in particular. It is helpful in this section that you will probably include citations to help root that indeed these are ethical considerations that I considered and here's how I did. Use past tense. You're describing what you actually did. Write with ethical sensitivity and the sense of professional responsibility. First person narrative. Demonstrate proactive ethical thinking rather than mere compliance. So it's not just like, I did this because IRB told me to ask for consent, right? We're demonstrating that this is a commitment that we have, not just something that we checked the box with. Organization strategy and guiding questions. So I have a list of topics and guiding questions. Reminder to avoid writing in a call and response manner. These guiding questions are there to help stimulate some of your thinking and how you might craft your narrative, but you need to decide how do you want to organize these ideas and how are you going to organize it and fit it into a narrative flow, okay? So a few different topics that I've already sort of briefly introduced. One topic is informed consent and voluntary participation. Are there elements from Davison and colleagues' concept of ethics of consent that guided your project? Discuss and cite accordingly. So you don't have to do this whole summary of it's not a literature review of what Davidson and colleagues said about ethics of consent, but you're kind of just hinting at it. You might describe how you attended to ethics of consent and cite Davison et al., Davison and colleagues, as a way to signal to your reader that this was inspired by this piece of work. It was inspired by the ideas presented by Davison and colleagues. This is also where you can have, in parentheses, a citation that says, see Davison and colleagues 2021, like SEE, where you're telling your readers like, hey, if you want to know more about this, you should look up this reading, like see this reading for more information. Some other guiding questions. How did you ensure participants understood the nature and scope of the PDSA implementation? What consent procedures did you use? How did you document agreement? How did you communicate participants' right to withdraw or modify their involvement? And what information did you provide about time commitments, expectations, and potential impacts? All of that is about informed consent and voluntary participation. Another topic, 1 to 2 paragraphs, talk about power dynamics and collaborative partnership. Are there elements from ethics of collaboration that guided your project, right? How did you address potential power imbalances between yourself and participants? What steps did you take to ensure authentic collaboration rather than just top-down implementation, right? So a sense of trying to balance some of that power. How did you create space for participant voice, feedback, and co-creation? If you did, what steps did you take to ensure participants felt safe to express concerns or disagreements? That can go a long way, right? Especially if we're engaging in collaborative work or engaging in interviews or engaging in focus group interviews to make sure that participants feel safe and that they can express disagreement. 1 paragraph about your confidentiality and data protection. How did you protect their identities? What data storage and security measures did you use? How did you ensure confidentiality while still gathering meaningful implementation data? As long as that makes sense, right? I know when we're working collaboratively, like we're not going to anonymize everything when we're working in a group. Like that's understandable, but the sense of some of that information that needed to be confidential, what are some steps that you took? The last paragraph, last topic, is about beneficence and risk management. So how did you ensure implementation would benefit rather than burden participants, right? You're telling us this on the front end before your readers actually read your PDSA cycle implementation. What potential risks did you identify? How did you address them proactively? How did you prepare for them? How did you monitor for unintended consequences throughout your implementation? And what support structures did you provide for participants throughout the process? So again, it's not that you will answer all of these guiding questions in 1 paragraph, but use them to generate, okay, here's how I can talk about beneficence and risk mitigation. Detail level, you're providing specific information about your procedures without compromising confidentiality. Include a good amount of detail to demonstrate your thoughtful, ethical planning. Your readers want to know that you were prepared, that you were thoughtful, and that you were thoughtful, intentional, and that you were really informed, right? So you're trying to demonstrate, here's all of the ways that I've already thought about all of these aspects. Focus on the spirit of ethical practice rather than procedural compliance. Okay, some writing tips. Although the section precedes your implementation, we're writing it after you've implemented your cycle, so use it. I do have a note here. Use it as a guide during your PDSA cycle. Take notes on the way. So hopefully you read over this section at some point and took some notes. Write a clear main topic sentence to organize this section. We don't necessarily need, I know each topic is like 1 paragraph. We don't need headings for 1 paragraph. APA 7 style says if you just have 1 paragraph, we don't need heading. You just need a clear main topic sentence. So that's why we don't have a whole lot of level 2 headings here. Connect ethical considerations to your specific context and participant population. Be concrete. Address formal ethical requirements and informal ethical sensitivities. Demonstrate ongoing ethical reflection rather than one-time compliance, the sense of how you choose to do this. And there's a way and tone that you can write it up that is demonstrating your commitment, not just your compliance and checking the box. Show how your ethical considerations shaped your implementation. And remember, ethical practice builds trust with your stakeholders, participants, and your readers. And it's only going to support the whole next section, which is your implementation section. So be mindful and careful here. You probably have a lot to say and we'll need to fit it into some clear, concise paragraphs. So some of your work here in writing might just be, how can I practice being concise? So your editing and revising is going to be really, really important, that you're making sure that you're covering all the details that you need to in each of the different paragraphs without belaboring anything. All right, good luck.